So a couple of nights ago, I was having dinner with a friend and we were just talking about some stuff. He's recently started therapy and just had some questions for me about the process and whatnot. And one of the things that we got to talking about that I have found to be really helpful for me personally is this idea of projection. And projection is one of those things that is kind of part of the pop psychology or TikTok therapy. And in general, most people understand it as a negative attribute, meaning that projection is when people experience something in themselves, but rather than have the self-awareness to see it in themselves, they actually start seeing it in other people. Whether or not it's actually present in those people or not is dependent on the situation and the person. But a good example would be somebody who feels really insecure may find other people who are really insecure. And typically what happens if the person feels negatively about their own insecurity, whether they are aware of it or not, they will they'll feel negatively toward people who are also insecure. If they feel like they have to care for people who are insecure, then it's likely that they're also seeking the same kind of care for themselves. And this can be applied to any number of interactions with ourselves and the people around us. What I didn't know until a couple of years ago was that projection also works in the positive. And for me, it's been really helpful and is a really effective way to kind of get at what we wish for ourselves, what we're desiring for ourselves. And it can really help identify some of the blocks that I have found that I and other people run into. So a really great example for me is that I did not grow up as an athlete, but in the past several years, 5 to 10, I've been going to the gym very consistently, have worked out very consistently, but have really struggled with imposter syndrome, this feeling that I did not belong there, no matter how much time I spent in the gym, no matter how much progress I saw. And I really admired and looked up to people who were really in shape, even people who are just as in shape as I am. And when I learned this about projection, I realized, I'm seeing something in these people that I do actually possess. I do possess some level of physical fitness, and I can see it in them and admire and celebrate it in them because that's easier than admiring it and celebrating it in myself. And so once I was able to see that it was a positive thing that I wanted, I was able to say, what's holding me back from seeing that? I think a common example that we see this dynamic play out for many people is with celebrities. We see people who are successful in their work, or we see people who have a level of financial wealth that we wish that we had, or have a kind of family dynamic that we wish we had, or friends that we wish we had. And we kind of emulate them. And this really is just a form of positive projection. We're seeing things that we in and of ourselves do possess the capacity for, maybe not as intensely or to the same degree that these people have, but we all have, to use the example of financial wealth, we all have some capacity for financial wisdom and financial growth and progress in terms of, making smart decisions with our money, etc. And many of the people who we admire for those reasons have already done so. And so I like to use this with myself and with others to identify maybe some areas that we want to move towards for growth and for healing, and just dreams that we would like to kind of move towards. So all of that to say, projection is not just negative. It definitely is. It's definitely something to be aware of. we all have a tendency to see in others the negative things that we would rather not see in ourselves. That can be really, really helpful in terms of finding areas for growth. But the same is true for positive things too. When you notice that you're really admiring the same kinds of people, perhaps it's time to do what you need to do to give yourself what you admire in the lives of the people that you admire. So I'll leave it at that for today. Thank you for listening to today's episode of Voice Memos from a Therapist. I'm Graham McBride, a licensed professional counselor associate, and I really appreciate you taking the time to listen. Make sure to subscribe so that you don't miss our next memo when it comes out, always on Monday mornings. Just a reminder, the content in these podcasts is just my own opinions. They should not be considered therapeutic counsel or advice. And as always, I reserve the right to continue to learn and grow, as I hope that we all are. If you have further questions, feel free to find me on social media at gmc.counseling. This podcast is also available on YouTube if you're more of a video person, along with some longer form content. And finally, if you would like to learn more about what was discussed today, you can find more details in the show notes. As always, I hope you have an amazing day.